What's going on, everybody? Jolt here from the Token Minorities, and today I am bringing you yet another ladder battle that I encountered, this time against another really good player named Patolegend. He was rated 15th or 16th at the time with like an 1840 or 60 something rating. Very high up there, so obviously upon seeing his rating, I realized this was going to be a heck of a battle. This time I am on my Tilt account, Ginger Titties, and usually I'm not in the best state of mind whenever I'm playing on this account, but because of that, my rating started to drop, so I decided to take it seriously for a little while, so I'm at least encountering good battlers whenever I'm playing on that account, you know. So, here we are. Team preview is pretty interesting, but before I dive into that, I wanted to give a shout out to Slick Rick Nixon. Probably my favorite subscriber name that I have on this channel. I die laughing every time I look at that name, and just to commemorate how awesome that name is, President Nixon is going to be the background of this video, so I hope you enjoyed that. But looking at the team preview, it's pretty interesting. As I said before, it appears that he might be running a Hazard Stack team with Garchomp, Stealth Rocks, and Spikes on Ferrothorn, with, of course, Starmie for Rapid Spin. So that's something definitely to be a little bit worried about, considering I am running a choice defogger, and my Specs Latios being my defogger. So that actually could be an issue, considering it's not exactly easy for me to get off defogs with this team, because I do really appreciate using Latios as a sweeper, or as a mon that's going to break holes in the opposing team. And whenever I'm pressured by hazards that much, I have to let Latios resort to being a defogger, which of course forces me to be locked into defog as a choice user. So that's a little bit awkward of a situation. Hopefully that doesn't get too out of hand here. I do need to pay a little bit of close attention and to seeing what kind of Starmie this is, and what kind of Talonflame this is, because just depending on the set, perhaps if this is an SD Talonflame, then I might have a little bit of trouble, considering I do sometimes have to rely on Rotom to beat opposing Starmies, especially if they are a Specs Starmie. So, team preview is interesting. Let's go ahead and jump into the battle. He decides to lead off with his Garchomp as expected. I lead off with my Rotom, as it was a pretty safe lead against his entire team, and I figured I could just burn something immediately, or just go for a Volt Switch for momentum, and he does lead with Garchomp, and I get off the Will-O-Wisp, and he does not reveal Lumberry, so I'm assuming now that this is going to be a Rocky Helmet variant, which seems to be the trend these days. So I just go straight into my Clefable, predicting the Dragon Tail, and I eat that up like it's nothing, and because he is burned, he literally has no way to do good damage to the Clefable, so I know this is a very safe switch, and even though I am specially defensive. Here he is going into his Ferrothorn as I go for the Wish, just kind of scouting for what he wanted to do, and knowing that I can really switch in anything on his switch-ins to the Clefable, and I decided to go into my Rotom. Even if he went for Power Whip, it would have done some good damage, but I would be able to get most of it back from the Wish anyways, and I want the burn on Ferrothorn more than anything, because if I can get the burn on Ferrothorn, then Latios has a much better time just sweeping right through his team. If you look through his team, he really doesn't have anything to take Specs Psyshocks or Specs Draco Meteors. Obviously he has Dancy for the Draco Meteors, but it doesn't appreciate taking Psyshocks because Mega Dancy's defenses are pretty pathetic. So definitely want to get the burn on Ferrothorn as soon as possible, and I'm going to go for that again here. He could have just gone for Power Whip again if he had it, but he did just go for the knockoff, so here I'm expecting him to not have Power Whip, and I'm just going to go for the free Will-O-Wisp, as he does reveal Power Whip on this turn, which does, what, 30-some%, so it's not too bad. Even if he did predict my Rotom Switch and get me with the Power Whip, I would have been able to take it pretty well. Here he goes into his Garchomp, predicting the Pain Slit, which is a very good play on his part, because that means I'm not going to be able to get any of my health back with Rotom. I'm actually going to lose health from that Pain Split, which is a little bit unfortunate. But here he goes into his Starmie as I go into my Clefable. I believe I was predicting that switch. I don't exactly remember my thought process there. This battle happened like a week ago. Just now getting around to recording it, unfortunately. But regardless, this part gets a little bit stally, as Clefable is my best, I guess, my best answer to Starmie at this point, with Rotom being weakened, so I do have to just use Clefable to wear down the Starmie as much as I can. If it comes to maybe having to PP stall him a little bit, then I might have to do that, but luckily that doesn't end up happening here, as he is going to switch out here in the next couple turns. But first, I'm going to have to go for the Heal Bell to get that Scald burn off of me, so that I have my Clefable nice and healthy to switch into potentially the Kelder, to switch into the Diancie, etc. So here he goes into his Diancie, and I don't really understand why. I guess he's expecting me to be more defensive, but he's seen the damage from the Scald. He should know that I have a lot of Spadef investment here, and I don't really know, but he goes for the Moonblast anyways, and that does pretty pathetic damage considering how strong Diancie is, and Clefable just eats that up like it's nothing. Unfortunately, he gets 2 special attack drops with the Moonblast, which is kind of unfortunate because now I'm not able to do as much damage with my own Moonblast, of course, but I'm just going to go for the Protect to get all my health back, and I'm just going to go for another Wish here knowing that I am winning this 1v1 war, and eventually he will go down and I'll be at relatively good health in the end of all this. So I just go for the Wish again, and I am just going to go for another Protect, just to make sure I get as much HP back as possible. And he goes for the Moonblast again. Now I'm expecting him to go for the Diamond Storm here, as that would just make sense, but he does decide to switch out and go into his Ferrothorn as I pull the switch into my Scizor. Scizor, of course, would be a fantastic switch into Mega Diancie, assuming he does not have HP Fire, but Scizor also is not a bad matchup against Ferrothorn, especially when the Ferrothorn is burned, but I do want to take this as an opportunity to go into my Heatran and get up my Stealth Rocks, as, or at least pressure him and then bring in his Starmie so I can get more momentum, because Stealth Rocks, of course, are very good against this Talonflame, and because I don't know what kind of Talonflame that is, it's best to have Rocks up as soon as possible, especially if it happens to be a Choice Banded set. So here I'm going to predict the switch into his Starmie and go into my Landorus T, but he goes into his Mega Diancie instead. Not really sure what he was predicting there. Maybe he was predicting a different double, but regardless, I predict the switch into the Rocky Helmet Garchomp, just go for the Earthquake and take it out. Here I'm just going to sack my Rotom to the hopefully banded Brave Bird, but he pulls a double switch into his Conkeldurr, which is pretty interesting, and now he reveals that he is actually a Life Orb Conkeldurr, and he takes out my Rotom Wash with a Mach Punch. Now, I have not seen Life Orb Conkeldurr in a really long time, so now I'm expecting this to be a Sheer Force set as opposed to a Gut set, and while that's not really important now, now that Rotom's of course gone and I can't burn it, it's going to make things a little bit interesting, because now my Clefable is not a switch-in. It's not a switch-in to the Conkeldurr, and I guess I figured that out a little bit late, as we'll see here in a little bit. But here he predicts my switch into the Scizor and just goes for the Thunder Wave, or I guess the switch into anything, probably Heatran. And just goes for the Thunder Wave, and I'm going to take this as an opportunity to go for the Bug Bite, just in case he wants to go into his Starmie, if it's an HP Fire variant, or if he wants to leave his Ferrothorn in and maybe try to set up a Leech Seed or something. But he just decides to go into his Talonflame, which is a good play. And here he predicts the switch into my Heatran and doubles into his Conkeldurr, and this sucks because now I lose a Pokemon. I am not prepared for Sheer Force Life Orb Conkeldurr, as it turns out. So yeah, this is going to be getting a lot of kills in this game, which is kind of unfortunate. I'm just going to go for the the Protect there for really no reason whatsoever, because I'm just going to die to the subsequent Ice Punch anyway. But yeah, that Ice Punch did a lot of damage. That's not even stab boosted. It is Sheer Force boosted, and I don't have much defense, but still, that's a lot of damage to a Clefable. Here I'm going to go into my Latios, and because the Ferrothorn is burned, I know that 2 Psyshocks should be able to take it out as long as I don't get a crappy roll. Which is pretty nice, because he has absolutely no switch-ins to this Latios anymore, and he lives with 1%, which is really unfortunate, because I am going to take another 12.5% from the Leech Seed damage, and that's unfortunate, because that means it's 1 less switch into Rocks, essentially. Here I'm going to go into my Scizor predicting the Protect. Instead, he switches into his own Starmie, which is fine. I don't anticipate him staying in here, so I am just going to go for the Roost to get my health back, knowing that I probably will need this to be my switch into Conkeldurr later on. And he just goes into his Talonflame, which was kind of expected. That's why I didn't want to go for the attack this time. And here he goes into his Ferrothorn, predicting my switch into Heatran, which was a really good play on his part, because now his Ferrothorn is going to go down to the burn and is going to be able to just go straight into his Conkeldurr and probably get another kill. He goes into his Diancie instead, though. I believe he should have gone to his Conkeldurr there. That's just my personal opinion. But he goes into Diancie and just goes for the Earth Power, trying to get the cheap KO on Heatran. I guess he realized that Heatran was going to be pretty good against his team at this point, although I really don't agree with that either, so I'm not really sure what he was doing. But regardless, he loses his Diancie to the Bullet Punch from Scizor, and now he goes for the Scald onto my Scizor with Starmie, and I live even though I had a special defense drop, and I take out the Starmie with a Bug Bite, so that was really big as well. So now he's down to just this Talonflame and a Sheer Force Life Orb Conkeldurr, and I have, now that Mon went down, I have Heatran, Landorus T, and Latios. Here I'm going to go into my Heatran and expecting him to switch out. I just go for the Flash Cannon, I believe. I go for the Rocks first, right. I go for the Rocks here because, of course, Talonflame needs to be as weak as possible, especially if this happens to be a bulk up set. And a bulk up set is kind of a threat to my team at this point in the game, if that is what it is. So now I just go for the Flash Cannon, and I get a big chunk of damage off on Conkeldurr. He did not go for Mach Punch there because I think he realized, I'm going to go ahead and pause it here, that he needs to take out Latios in order to win this game. Or Landorus T for that matter. If he managed to take out either of those Mons with his Conkeldurr, then he guaranteed won with this what turns out to be a bulk up Talonflame. But because I stayed in and just went for Flash Cannon, realizing that I needed the safe switch into Latios to win this game, it turned out pretty well for me. So here he goes into his Talonflame and takes the big 49% from the Stealth Rocks. Now here he goes for the bulk up, as I was predicting the Roost and went for the Earth Power. And here's where I get a little bit worried, but I do realize that I have a pretty good chance to win this game if I don't screw up here at the end. So here I go into my Landers T, only for the Intimidate. Kind of expecting a Roost perhaps, but still, he just goes for the bulk up. Now he goes for the Roost, expecting my Stone Edge, and it does 51%. Okay, so here I know that he's going to keep roosting until I miss my Stone Edge, so I'm going to go straight into my Latios, and he just goes for the Roost. Now I'll pause here. At this point, I ran a calc and realized that Patolegend would need to have one more bulk up on his Talonflame to be guaranteed to survive a Stone Edge from my Landers T. I actually have a pretty good chance of OHKOing the Talonflame at this amount of HP. So, what I expected Patolegend to do at this point was go for another bulk up, because he, if he's full Spadef, can live a Specs Draco Meteor and then just stall me out by continuously going for Roost, of course. So I figured that his best play was just to go for a bulk up on this turn, and even so, I believe my best play regardless was just to go for the Trick here, as you've already seen, and that is going to neuter his Talonflame to the point where he cannot, of course, attack anymore, and that's going to be the game, and he's just going to leave from there. So that was a really nice win against a very, very good player. Definitely an intense match, and it was pretty exhilarating, to be honest. I really enjoyed this match, even though it did take several turns, 52 turns. It's kind of my average turn count for the team, this team I'm using. But I hope you enjoyed, and please leave a like and a comment if you did enjoy, and I will see you next time. Peace.